Watching Kyle's unboxing videos again?
Yeah, he always finds the coolest... No way! A robot dog? Gotta ask where he got it.
Or use your Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. Just draw a circle around the dog on your screen, and it shows you where to buy it right in the app.
Whoa, I just learned a new trick. And that for once, I beat Kyle to the next big thing.
Circle it, find it with the new Galaxy S24 Ultra and circle the search with Google. Get yours now at Samsung.com. Internet connection required. Results may vary based on visuals.
How was football not taken off during COVID?
You haven't won a trophy. You've won promotion.
I've seen him twice, Timmy Mallet. He opened up the Millgate shopping centre.
Oh, really? This isn't a podcast. Think you'll find. This is a business meeting.
You leave Ryan Reynolds alone. He's been through a lot this season.
Can't wait for them to have to act that out on the charades round of A Question of Sport.
Half-time bullseye, why not?
Or could you win a speedboat? Forgot Les Parry took charge.
I've got a pair of his shorts upstairs somewhere.
Hello and welcome to It's Only a Game podcast. Here with myself, Jimmy, and we've got a very special guest tonight because, dear listener, we do a lot of talking, as you know, on this podcast, but tonight we are just as much a listener as you are. We are here to learn a little bit about, well, as we know, it is home. We didn't specify which year or gender, but now it is home. England have won the Women's Euros, and it was honestly one of the best games I've watched in a long time. What do we all think? Did we all watch the game Sunday? What do we make of it, ladies and gents?
Yeah, it was brilliant. Me and Shell watched it. It was fantastic. It was just really nerve-wracking. The last half an hour, I was like, oh, are we going to do it? Are we not? Germany have never lost the final. All these statistics were being thrown into the commentary about, oh, they've never done this. England can't do that. They're like, oh. And then, well, we did it in the end, didn't we? We did it.
Similar to you, Greg, I sat and watched it. Really exciting final. Had absolutely everything in that you could possibly ask for. Extra time winner. Obviously, some of the Tranmere fans listening will know exactly what that feels like down at Wembley. And just to kind of see, obviously going back to the men's final against Italy, and there was that kind of disappointment and that kind of, the big build-up and it just not quite happening. And it was just fantastic to see an England side getting themselves over that final hurdle. As you were saying there, some of the comments that the press were saying about, Germany had never lost a final, X, Y and Z, and it was almost waiting for that moment to happen, and it never quite came, or never quite come. And just great to see England do it, get over the line and bring it home. We've also got, obviously, as Jimmy said earlier on, a very special guest with us this evening. Bethan was actually down at Wembley, so I don't know whether you could share a little bit of what you saw and heard and felt while you were down there, Bethan.
Absolutely, Dec. It was amazing. It was unreal to see, to have gone from being in a position where we were handing out tickets a few years ago to try and get bums on seats and to get people watching the women and be interested in the women's game, to be sat, second tier surrounded by over 87,000 fans was an incredible experience, and to see kind of the diversity within the audience as well. Typically there's been young children and families at the event, whereas the final was all, it was men, it was women, it was young children, it was teenagers, it was, it was people of all communities and backgrounds, and it was, fantastic. To have been able to witness that was something quite special, to be fair.
Outstanding, and I think it's been well publicised, obviously, by the press and people on social media as to just how special that atmosphere was. Not just the winning atmosphere, but obviously the behaviour of the fans in the build-up to the game, after the game, and it just had, take the result out of it for a minute, it had everything that a final should have. And I feel like the people in attendance there both represented the nations in what can only be described as an impeccable manner. What we're going to do for the listeners now, obviously some of our long-term listeners will kind of know the panel and a little bit about our background from some things that we've said, but I'm going to pass you over. I think we'll go to Jimmy first, and we're just going to kind of introduce ourselves a little bit in terms of our background in terms of sport, whether it be as a supporter, someone who's involved in it, and then obviously we'll build back to you in a couple of minutes, Bethan, and get you to kind of talk about your background, obviously in sport in general, as well as the women's game, obviously building up to what you do currently. So I'll pass you over to Jimmy. Try not to bore everyone to death, Jimmy, but your kind of participation or your kind of experience within sport.
Dec, as you know, I met you through education. I taught primary school for 9 years, which, I got, aboard so many people that are left, including you, clearly, because you stayed in touch. But my phone's been off the hook this week, admittedly, not, for any nefarious means, but because I've had parents asking, because I coach the ages 4, 5 and 6 at West Kirby United, real little children, and the amount of parents that want to have their young girls come and join us in the 2nd September. I mean, we are, first off, I will say we're very inclusive. We do have a lot of girls come and join us and play alongside the lads. A lot of them are better than the lads as well. Let's just put it out there. We've had that for many years. We do also have a girls team on the Sunday, which they've got the option of joining if they wish to. But, they're so young, it doesn't really matter. As long as they're enjoying playing football with whoever, it does make a difference, and we love to see it. We get as many girls involved, and more importantly, get as many of the parents, the mums involved. We've had mums and grandparents get involved with the coaching side of it as well, which is a big thing as our remit as a grassroots charity-run club. So my phone's been busy all week. We've come my daughter come and join. She's 4, she's 5, and we come in September, which, we would get the odd girl, but I think we've had 10, 12 requests this week, and we usually only get like 3 in a year. So the impact straight away we've seen from what's happened has been absolutely phenomenal, and I'm just so proud that the game in the women's game is taking off the way it is now, especially at such a young age. So that's my kind of background into it, really.
Outstanding, Jimmy, and it's really good to hear. Obviously, we'll go a little bit into the legacy and what kind of impact we're expecting the last week's events to have in the short term and long term, but it's fantastic to hear that obviously there has been, just in the very immediate term, some kind of impact as well. Greg, can I hand over to you?
I don't really have a sporting background in anything, really. I'm just a graphic designer, so I am a Rochdale fan for my sins.
You won Tiddlywinks once.
I've been watching Rochdale since about 20 odd years. Used to give away free tickets to high schools. I don't know if they still do that these days, or primary schools. Do they still give the tickets to other club, like did Tranmere do that? I'm not too sure. I know Bury used to, and Oldham and Rochdale used to. But I've been going 22 something years, and I don't really have a sporting background like Jim or Dec in terms of on that side, but I just thought I'd introduce myself anyway.
Excellent, and just a really brief background on me. So I'm currently a primary school teacher. I'm also PE lead at my school, so we're a 2-form entry. We've got just shy of 400 children on count. So I'm obviously responsible for the delivery of PE across the board. So going from, as you were saying before, Jimmy, the ages of 5 right the way up to 11, and making sure then that we've got that kind of love for sport going into secondary school, which is really important. That's one of the main drop-offs at the minute in terms of participation, that when children generally go to secondary school, although there's a lot more on offer, they kind of drop out quite quickly, and that's obviously not what we want. Obviously, prior to me starting to teach, I did an undergrad degree at Liverpool John Moores, which is where I met Bethan. I went along the kind of inclusive sport, so a lot of kind of disability sport, looking at different kind of groups within society and trying to target them with different interventions, and looking at the funding and how the government were kind of backing or not backing that. And at the time that we were both at university and on the sporting degree, we were just on the back end of the 2012 Olympics, so everything was really fresh, and there was all these ideas coming out of where funding was going to come from and how we were going to create this legacy, which in all honesty, kind of going through the degree, we could see how it should work. And then from my perspective, certainly from the teaching standpoint, that there was never really a follow through on that. And for me, that's something that has to change now for obviously the success of the Lionesses earlier on in the week. So I'll pass you over to Bethan. She's going to talk a little bit just about her kind of, hopefully, background in terms of sport participation, maybe from kind of like a younger age, and how she's worked her way up to where she is now. So all three of us are very much all ears. Over to you.
Thank you, Dec. So I started playing football, since I can remember. I've always had a ball at my feet. Not long ago found a video of me when I was 5 years old in the back garden, kicking a ball against the fence and my dad shouting at me. That kind of always came from me, no older siblings, parents that wanted to play, and it was always something that I wanted to do and played at primary school. I was, really fortunate to get the opportunity, not through PE, but to play with the boys, kind of extracurricular after school activity. And I played in boys football teams in the community. Now I'm actually from across the border, so just over the border into Wales, in Flintshire. And at the age of 10, I was told, you can no longer play with the boys. there's no pathway there. There's no mixed football after the age of 10. Which for me was a huge barrier, because all of my friends, I played with them in school, and then I was being told, that's got to end for you now. And that's really, I think, where my drive for what I've done and what I've achieved today has really come from. So off the back of that, I joined a local girls team. I didn't know anybody, all of my friends from school that were girls weren't interested in football. So I was kind of thrown into this team of girls that I'd never met before, going from a very comfortable environment. And luckily enough, got straight in with them, was really comfortable after a few months, and after a couple of years of playing in that grassroots team, was picked up by Wales at the age of 13, and started playing for the Welsh under-17 squad. At that point, I think I was playing either 7v7 or 9v9 on very much park pitches with potholes and things like that, and was very quickly told that I needed to go and find an 11v11 team. And that was when I moved across to Tranmere Rovers, and I was at Tranmere from the age of 14. Fantastic setup, centre of excellence. And really flourished in that environment and played for Wales up until the age of 19. Went to university, Dec, and I know you've touched on it around looking at participation. And my sole reason for going to university was just so that I could talk about girls' football all day, every day. That's all my interest ever was, and still continues to this day. Was really lucky to kind of be able to follow that path through university, and when I then graduated, started my role at the Staffordshire Football Association as football development officer for women and girls. Again, really fitting in terms of what I wanted to achieve, and was there for 6-7 years. I did have a major knockback at that point in my playing career. I did rupture my ACL and was out for 3 years. So in that time, I became a coach, I became a referee, and gave back to the female game that had given so much to myself, alongside working at the Staffordshire Football Association. After 6-7 years there, while I was there, I started playing for a club called Sporting Calcer. Very much a community-based club that play in the FA Women's National League. So a very good standard. And then upped and left and moved as I changed jobs. My current role, and the role I've been in now for almost a year and a half, is at the FAW, and I'm the girls participation, so the National Girls Participation and Engagement Manager, and very much focusing at developing the girls game on a national level and providing more opportunity to girls, which of course meant that as I came back up north, I was able to move back to the club that had given me so much opportunity over the years, in Tranmere Rovers, and I've been back playing there now for just over a year, and absolutely loving it. But yeah, I think my drive for the female game came from a very early age, and having those setbacks and barriers that I know many girls or females of my age have faced, and now we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel a little bit, and I know we're going to go on to discuss a little bit more about the Euros and the impact and the legacy, but very interesting what you said, Dec, around schools, and I don't know if you saw it today, but what the Lionesses have shared around the legacy of the Euros and trying to get football in all schools in England moving forward, and it's really important that legacy continues to allow girls those opportunities, so it'll be interesting to see what happens next.
Absolutely. One thing that kind of came across there to me, just obviously listening to your background, Bethan, and I'm sure it has to the rest of the panel here, your kind of passion and drive for the women's game and for the girls' game is a shining light and an example as to what everybody, whether you're involved within football or any other sport, that's the kind of mantra and the approach that we should all have. And I think if that was the case across the board at all levels, going from the very elite right the way down, we'd have a completely different pyramid, certainly within football, across the country at all levels, different abilities, genders, etc. So it's fantastic to kind of hear, and even though there's been different kind of setbacks, obviously, as you were saying there about coming out of school and not being able to play because obviously rules at that time were specifying different age groups and genders and so on couldn't mix, and then obviously going to university and then having the injuries and the setbacks and that kind of thing. I think that just kind of shows the strength and character that you have as an individual, and there, what you were saying about, even when you were injured, you were still wanting to give back in as many different ways as you possibly could. It's just fantastic to hear, and it's also really, really good to hear. I know obviously Tranmere as a club have given their kind of blessing for you to be on this evening, and I think it's very, very clear why you speak so highly of the club as well. And I was obviously speaking to Jimmy and Greg a little bit earlier about the club's kind of legacy in producing top quality England internationals and players who've gone on to achieve some fantastic things within the women's game, and long may that continue. I know obviously at one stage Tranmere were right at that kind of top division. It was before the Women's Super League had even become a thing, but they were playing with the likes of Arsenal and so on. Just a quick question from me. Obviously we'll go down the route of the Euros and so on, but in terms of Tranmere Women's, what kind of level are they now playing at in terms of divisions?
Yeah, absolutely, Dec. So you're 100% right. Going back, a few years, we've still got some of those players that are still in our squads that played against the likes of Rachel Yankee, Rachel Unit, some of those big names that are now, doing the punditry, doing the commentary, and they're still at the club, and that's a credit to the club itself in being able to retain those players. We're currently, we play at Tier 5, and that for me is due to, we need more support, and I think the Euros have been a fine example of that in terms of build it and they will come. It's a platform, and people having more interest in the female game supports us as players. We're very much, we're not elite, we're not professional. We still pay our subs to play like any other team. We don't get paid to play. So we are really reliant on things like sponsorships. There is sponsorship opportunities to support us as a club currently. Getting people to come and watch our games. Our games are free to come and watch. So the kids in local schools or the Tranmere Rovers supporters that are there week in, week out, we play on a Sunday, and there's no reason why we can't try and build on the base that we've got, because we've got a great network of players and players that really can achieve, but we need more backing, and more backing from people that maybe aren't interested in female football, but hopefully off the back of the Euros, really want to look at how they can support in many different ways, whether that's, businesses, individuals, families that want to, come in and see what's actually out there and what's available for girls growing up. We've got a pathway from under 8s all the way through, and it's a shining light, and they did, I don't know if they still do, but they offered, walking football for elderly women as well. So the pathway's there for anybody that wants to participate. I'm sure you're already aware that it's a massive community club, and there is opportunity there. It's just really recognising that and supporting that to enable us to flourish and be back really where we deserve to be.
Just go to show how lucky we are in the world to have such a fantastic community club, and we owe that from the very top right the way down through to everyone involved, and all facets of the club really. Because personally, I didn't realise it was free to go and watch it. I'm definitely coming down now. That's the main. I was going to come anyway, but that's fantastic. It's all I can say is get out there, come and watch. Not just Tranmere Rovers ladies, or you see a lot now. Watch your local WSL team. By all means, do. Go watch your local team, whoever they are, whatever level they are in the women's game. They all need support up and down the country. Not that this podcast necessarily reaches up and down the country. It may do, who knows. But go and support your local women's team. That's all I want to say on that one, because that is, it's growing, and it's going to be huge. So let's get out there and do it on a Sunday or whatever day.
Yeah, I've got a really good feeling. Obviously Tranmere is a club in terms of their women's side, and also some other, kind of, in inverted commas, smaller clubs like ourselves. I think that's where we're going to see the biggest change, or certainly should see the biggest change. Your kind of big clubs, your Cities, your Chelseas and so on, they seem to have a fan base already in place and an infrastructure, obviously because of the amount of funding that is already at that level. Does that need to get bigger? Of course it does. We know that from obviously the men's game. The bigger the Premier League is, the more interest we then kind of, or should see, kind of filter down the pyramid. So of course that still needs to increase in that kind of elite sense. But at Rovers level, whereby, as you were saying, the 5th division, I think you were saying before, Bethan, have we got the the capacity to get promoted to the 4th or the 3rd division. More than likely, I don't know an awful lot about the differences in the divisions. Bethan's nodding there on screen, so I'm going to say 3rd division. Let's push for 2nd. But there's no reason why that can't happen.
You're going up this season?
Yeah, we're going up, back to back. But there's no reason why that can't happen. And I think one thing that I found really interesting, I obviously followed the Tranmere ladies' Twitter account, and the number of interactions between fans and so on there, even just over the last week. There was actually an interesting suggestion on there, and again, I don't know the feasibility of it. I don't know whether it's something that could happen. There were a number of fans who were asking whether the women's fixtures, if they had a home fixture, could be played immediately after. So if the men's team had a game, say 3 o'clock on a Saturday, could the women's team then kick off, say, at 5:30? Now, if you've got a crowd there of, let's say, 7,000, 8,000 on a good day, on a very good day, if you're holding 1,000, 1,500 of those back, and you go on a run of a couple of decent results, and then you're getting 2,000, that's where your momentum's going to build. And I don't know the ins and outs, and I'm sure even Bethan as a player, that's probably way above your kind of pay grade and level as well. But it's certainly an interesting perspective, and for me, it's really good to see not just that being suggested by fans, but the fact that they're wanting to come and support. I've just drawn up there as well of the forthcoming fixtures, so I think before we finish, we'll make sure that we get those out there, so that if anyone does listen to this, apart from ourselves, that we can hopefully kind of bolster the attendances a little bit. Jimmy?
I think a model to go with would be looking at the cricket with the 100, where they have the women's game on and the men's game on. They play the same fixtures, if you will. I mean, obviously it can't quite correlate between, the Tranmere Rovers men's fixture and the Tranmere Rovers women's fixture, but I think it's doable, certainly, with regards to playing, whether it's before the game or after the game. It depends on when it's feasible in terms of what's the groundsman going to say about it, the changing rooms, having a change round, making sure it's all cleaned and everything. I think absolutely. I mean, I'd happily stay, for a couple of hours after, definitely, to watch the women's game if it was to go on after the men's and so on. So I think that's a great idea. I'm glad the club are mooting it about, and it's certainly one that can be used not just by Rovers, but I'm sure by plenty of other clubs. Yeah,
and I think as a club, we're very open to ideas and whatnot, and I'm not afraid or scared to be that club that kind of stands up and changes things and does things to kind of set the trend. So hopefully, we've got the backing of really good owners who have a very, very good understanding and certainly have the finger on the pulse in terms of what's needed, and they certainly look ahead rather than just dealing with what's immediately in front of them. So hopefully as a club, we will see big changes and a kind of change in direction, obviously, for the women's team, as you're saying, Beth, and the team that obviously is currently there certainly has more potential if it's given that backing, which I'm confident it will be. And it's just about getting bums on seats or feet at the side of terraces and backing it, really. Jimmy, you've got...
Yeah, can I ask, Bethan, moving away from the club game a bit to the international side, I noticed you've got your Wales jersey on there. You say you're over the board and that. What's your experience of representing Wales then in the women's game?
We're talking, over 10 years now, so I'm sure it's changed. The opportunities we got, though, as we were kids, 16, 17, 18 years old, being able to go to countries like, we played against France, we played against Holland, Portugal, Belgium, real top teams, played in the UEFA Championships. Amazing experiences, things that you look back on and things you hold with you, for life. And the infrastructures that are in place are second to none when you're looking at an international level, whether that's Wales or some of the bigger ranked countries. There's no fault in any of the setups and the experiences that then you carry with you, and being able to say that you've played against some of these top players now is something just to carry around with you and drop in every now and then, isn't it?
Well, that's it. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like to represent your country at anything. It must be such a huge honour, such a sense of pride, But feel free to name drop. Were there any players that maybe featured at the Euros that you would have come up against, or is it that long ago that you don't remember? Or
yeah. So I played against Nikita Paris, Alex Greenwood, Trying to think who else in that England team would have been. I know there was Danielle Carter, but she wasn't at the Euros this time. So yeah, very much my age group. But yeah, it's great to be able to, you know, be at Wembley in front of 87 fans and go, oh yeah, I played against her.
Yeah, you've just played against European champions. No big deal. That's, you know, wow. That is amazing. That is definitely a first for this podcast. We've got somebody who's played football for starters. Because let's face it, we just get our mates on normally. Not that you're not. We don't consider you a friend now.
We had a whole episode on Les Parry's shorts.
That's how professional we are. We apologise to everyone at Tranmere Rovers for that. But yeah, no, to actually have somebody not only who's just played the game, because let's put it this way, we could put all our legs together as lads and we'd be absolutely hopeless as a footballer still. So to have someone with your experience and knowledge and to play the level you've done is absolutely massive for us. And it's amazing to hear that, you know, you've had this experience, especially on a week where it's been so huge for the women's game and certainly in this country. Can I just ask though, I know you were there, obviously on the day and everything else. If it had been the men's game, and if England were to win the men's World Cup, I don't think many Welsh people would be very happy about that. What was your actual thought regarding that? Was it the same rivalry, or was it a case of, oh, you know what, it's good for the UK?
Yeah, so for me working in women's football, and being a part of women's football as a whole, all you want is the best for the game. So no matter which countries were involved in the final, whether England were there or not, I'd already bought tickets a year and a half ago to the final, and I was going, and I was supporting the game, because of the legacy, because the game was, you know, 3 hours down the road. It's not the other side of Europe. It's accessible to so many girls to see. There's a phrase that we use constantly. I've been on a works meeting this evening, and it's one of the big things that's put up big on a presentation. If you can see it, you can be it. And a lot of girls haven't had the opportunity to see it. So how can you be something that you can't see and you can't relate to? You don't know that the opportunities are there. So having a game of that calibre anyway at Wembley is huge. So either way I was going to be there, but was I supporting the Lionesses? Yes, absolutely, because why would you not want a home nation to, you know, succeed and achieve? And also from a selfish perspective, even over in Wales, we're still going to see the benefits of that win. So
yeah, no, that's really good to hear. Just kind of linking on from that, really, in terms of your job now working with the Welsh FA and obviously looking at participation and so on. I know from kind of a teacher and from an education standpoint that there are changes that need to be made at top level, talking national curriculum and so on and so forth, in order to ensure that the legacy of what has happened over the last 7 days hits home and doesn't just, it's not a kind of flash in the pan, and it's not one of these things that, you know, you must change everything that you do and deliver this, etc., and then in 6 months' time it's forgotten about. There has to be kind of big changes in terms of obviously the curriculum, in terms of you know, expectations for delivery. Not necessarily with football, I wouldn't say. I think it is just that ensuring that kind of equal participation and equal delivery, which in fairness does happen, but ensuring that is then lifelong, and that's the tricky bit. That's the kind of the difficult bit for all of us really within the sport and community. Anyone who works in it, I'm sure you'll know yourself, Bethan, and obviously Jimmy, obviously you coach, but the children who are there because they want to be there, if that makes sense. Even at such a young age, the amount of kind of pushy parents, if you like, I would expect would be fairly minimal, that the children are almost, that, you know, that going to football on a Sunday morning is like the dangling carrot to get them to put the uniform on a Tuesday morning. But for me, things like, we spoke a little bit before the episode, you know, those kind of archaic things of, right, there's for example, a year 6 football match, it's mixed gender and you must have a minimum of 2 girls in the squad. For me, that has to stop. It should just be, right, it's a mixed team. Don't put numbers on it, because then it's that kind of, right, well, I'm doing that because I'm ticking a box. things like that have been around since, the dinosaurs walked the earth. There's a lot of things in there that do need to just change for the better. And as practitioners, we do that anyway. You kind of read between the lines and you make sure that you're giving everyone that kind of equal platform and equal numbers of opportunities. I certainly saw, and whether it's just a complete coincidence or whether it was kind of a prelim building up to obviously the Euros this year, as a school, we obviously get invited to attend, tournaments and things being put on by, the local school games coordinators and so on. But I saw a massive increase in the number of football tournaments specifically for girls. And I will kind of name drop here a little bit, which will please Jimmy. Everton in the community were fantastic at that. We got a number of invites as well from Tranmere, and it's fantastic to see that the local clubs have almost taken that initiative to kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, kind of preempt what should happen on the back of the Euros. No one was kind of expecting the England women's side to do as well as they were. Maybe they were, but it was just a matter of fact of we're hosting it and the legacy has to be there. So from your perspective, Bethan, what would you kind of want in your role, obviously as a player, in terms of whether it be a better pitch, facilities, whatever, number of people coming and watching, etc., and also then from the kind of mass participation side to the more kind of inclusive standpoint rather than the elite standpoint, what would you want to see kind of change and start to filter down over the coming months and years, obviously on the back end of the tournament?
Probably ask me the worst question you could ask me, because I could go on and on and on, and I'll try and keep it as short as possible because I can go on a tangent. But yeah, it has to start in schools. School football shouldn't be competitive. It should be developmental. Every child in school should be given the opportunity. Whether that opportunity isn't taken, that's up to the child. But whether that's a male or a female, they should be given an equal opportunity to participate, no matter what sport that is. That's not just me coming from a football standpoint. I know the FA have done it for a number of years when I was working over there, and over the border in Wales we're now delivering on the UEFA Disney Playmakers, which targets girls aged 5 to 8, girls only opportunity to play football, but very much in a fun, through storytelling, through Disney. They don't know they're playing football, but they're working on so many different skills, whether that's life skills, fundamentals. They're just having a good time, and that's what football at that age should be about, whether that's boys or girls. It's not about parents shouting at the side of the pitches. It's about kids with smiles on their faces having fun, and that should be the same all the way through primary school ages. Then obviously that goes through secondary school. There's loads of sustainability stuff to ensure that the infrastructures are right to keep people in the game. Again, male and female, it doesn't change too much. We've just worked on a piece at the FAW around creating environments for her. And there's a resource part that very much talks about making sure and ensuring that your club cultures, your facilities are inclusive for females. Having difficult discussions around things like sanitary bins, changing rooms with locks, all these things that people don't consider, but could put off a female from playing football, and that's of any age. Girls having the confidence, especially at teenage ages, when they're conscious of body image, they're conscious of a number of different things, especially after lockdown, when they've been locked up for a couple of years, and then they're thrown back into the big bad world where they haven't socialised properly, and then we're asking them to go and play in these mass participation tournaments where there's no toilets with locks on, there's no sanitary bins, and there's lots of little things to consider. From a playing perspective, I've always been very lucky to play on good pitches with good infrastructure at good clubs, but it's about ensuring that is across the board. So for any female that plays football, whether that is, so we created a programme when I was at Staffordshire FA called Mums Play Football, and that was for ladies of open age that had never kicked the ball before but had supported the game, and they were the lost generation, they were the missed generation. Football had been banned, they weren't given an opportunity. So whether you're that 5-year-old that's turning up to your first session, or whether you're a 50-year-old that's turning up to your first session, the infrastructures have to be right. That welcome has to be right. Because if you put somebody off that first session, then they're not going to come back. And for me, it's just about providing equal opportunities, but that cater for all needs. Because it has to be based on ability and ensuring that there's opportunity for everybody out there. I have probably gone on that tangent that I said I was going to try and avoid. But yeah, for me, it's just about providing opportunities and making sure that actually the little things that mean probably the most to females are considered across the board. There was an image that was shared, and I can't remember which newspaper it was. I think it was the Telegraph. It was a quote from Beth Mead, and it was around the England kit. Now, obviously, they played in an all-white kit. Looks very, very smart. However, for a female, it's not always practical during the menstrual cycle. And it's things that aren't considered maybe by people that are making these decisions higher up. And it's things, it's just about hearing the woman's voice and ensuring that all things are taken into consideration.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. I think it's being very open and honest in terms of what is needed. 2, it's being very thorough, isn't it, in terms of, looking at it from all angles, your age ranges and obviously your individual needs, kind of at that level. And 3, it's just, as you're saying there, it's about making it an attractive proposition. You can throw as much money at something as you want, but if you're not getting the participation or the people through the door, if you like, it's just not going to work. It's not sustainable. And I think we've kind of learned that in a roundabout way, in certain ways from the men's game, that money has been thrown at things, different kind of ideas, concepts, tournaments, etc., that just haven't caught on. And I think I was saying this a little bit before the podcast as well, that so many mistakes have been made. One of the, the major ones was, obviously when women were told by the FA that they could not play. It's absolutely shocking when you look back at it now. And, so many different things that have happened in the past, and history's all about learning from it, isn't it? If you don't learn from history, then what's the point in it? If you learn from your mistakes and you move forward and so on, which hopefully is what we've done now. We've turned a big corner. But we were saying kind of before the pod that all of those mistakes that have been made, either within the men's game or within other sporting disciplines, whether it be male, female, etc., that the female game now is that kind of what's the word I'm looking for? It's at that point where it could go one of two ways, and that's really, really exciting. And I think having people like yourself, Bethan, working within the game, and obviously the FA, across the border in Wales and here in England, have definitely got the finger on the pulse in terms of what's going on. And it's about tapping into, obviously the knowledge of people like you who have played, continue to play, and also look at it from that kind of participation side to ensure that those mistakes that have happened in the past don't continue to happen. And it's almost wiping that slate clean and trying to go in afresh, really. Jimmy, you've got your hand up like a naughty schoolboy in the corner there.
Well, I am a naughty schoolboy in the corner, as you well know. No, I just think going back to what you said about the ban on women's football, obviously it was absolutely abhorrent, but also that it was due to, forgive my lack of education here, down to the fact the attendances in women's football were doing really, really well. I think there was games at Wembley and at Goodison Park that sold out. You know what, really forgive my lack of education. There was a women's football that was unbelievable during the wartime in the 50s. I'm sure somebody will Google it. Other search engines are available. But we had a really good thing going, women's football, and almost like the men's FA, the men in blazers, if you will, the stuffy old cronies of the FA. Not that they are now. Times have moved on. Thought, we can't be having that. And it's like, well, why not? It was really popular, and I'm really glad to see that we are finally, as a nation and as a general sport, looking to right some really, really, really bad wrongs that went on for many, many years and did set back the game. I think the game as a whole, it's set back. I think if you look at, obviously I'm not a father, but if I had a child, I'd rather take him, whether son or daughter, I'd rather take him to a women's game at the moment, because the atmosphere, you noticed the other night, the German anthem wasn't booed, it was a wholesome atmosphere. The fact that Bethan can go support England, and have a good time, whereas you'd always get someone at the men's game. We've been to enough matches, lads, to know there's always one, and Bethan included, in the men's side of the game, where there's always somebody there that's going to be an idiot. There's always someone that's going to cause trouble. And you get the feeling that it's gone too tribal the way in the men's game at times. Where off the field issues, you look at obviously the behaviour of fans at Wembley, for the England-Italy final, some fans, I should say, not all. Compare that to the real refreshing pleasantness that surrounded the final on Sunday, and of just the whole tournament. There was a celebration of all things that we love about football, love about community, love about inclusivity, and the attitude towards it was absolutely wonderful. And I think that ban has set back societal attitudes towards football in general, but certainly towards women's football in some cases many decades. And I'm just so glad we're coming out of it now. And like I say, it's women's football in many ways is what the men's game should be. It's learning from mistakes in terms of it's still very grassroots. It's still the working person's game, still, quite literally, And it's just really great to see it take off the way that, like I say, should have done many years ago and was taking off.
Yeah, I think, again, you've hit the nail on the head there, Jimmy, and I'm conscious that I've done it the whole way through the podcast, referring to men's football and women's football, because at the end of the day, it is a game. I mean, we come back to our podcast title, it's only a game, and it is only a game. It doesn't matter who's playing, doesn't matter at what level, doesn't matter who you are, what you are, what you identify as, whether you're tall, short, fast, slow, it does not matter. It's there, and it's accessible for every single person to play. And I think, and a kind of another standpoint to look at, going back to what you were saying there about obviously experiences of going watching men play football, and not every experience has been negative by any means, but I think what's really, really important now is the number of crossovers that we're starting to see, the number of women who are involved within the elite and within the kind of participation levels within matches that involve men, and also now kind of starting to see a little bit of a slow crossover, but it is happening with the number of males now starting to be involved within the female game. And I think the more that happens as well, taking the players aside and you're looking at your number of managers, physios, nutritionists, etc., your behind the scenes lot, your social media, your people doing your interviews, photographers, whatever it'll be, I think the more we can see of that, the kind of the imaginary wall that's kind of been built up between men playing a game and women playing a game is kind of being taken down brick by brick, and that for me is really, really important. And hopefully, obviously, the legacy now of the Euros and the success of the Lionesses will hopefully kind of aid bringing that wall down a little bit quicker, because it does just need to go.
Yeah, just on that as well, I remember every game I watched at the Euros this summer, it was great to see so many male fans in the crowd. A few years ago, you wouldn't have seen it. Would have been women's game. It would have been. I remember thinking England played Scotland at Tranmere a few years back, and I think it was all just women and children in the crowd. Not there's anything wrong with that, of course, but you'd like to see everyone feel that they were able to go. Whereas there'd be a very male attitude of, "Oh, I'm not going to go and watch that." Oh, that kind of macho kind of bravado thing. Whereas now it's a lot more like, you know what? Yeah, let's go and support them. And it just became, I'm just going to go and watch the football, which is what it should be. It shouldn't be, I'm going to go watch the women's football or I'm going to watch the men's football. I'm just like with tennis, you just go and watch the tennis. You don't specify the gender because it doesn't make a difference. Just going to go watch the football. That's how I hope it's going to be, as part of the legacy of not just England winning the Euros, but as the tournament as a whole, with the attendances the way they've been, and hopefully as well with the upcoming World Cup as well. You'll correct me on this one, Beth, and I'm sure 2023 there's Women's World Cup. I can't be sure on that one. The last one was 2019. I couldn't tell you where it's taking place, unfortunately, but I will learn. So my apologies. But yeah, I just hope that continues to be. It just becomes more usualised that the two sports are seen as one sport, like it is with tennis, like it is with now cricket as well, and rugby league is starting to do it more.
Kind of leading on from that as well, Jimmy, I went and watched the Lionesses play, and I cannot for the life of me remember who it was that they played against at Prenton Park. It was about about 5-6 years ago now, I'm going to say. Whoever it was, they absolutely wiped the floor with them. I'm tempted to say it was about a 6 or 7-0 result. And in the crowd that day, and it wasn't one of those events where it was kind of just, dishing tickets out to whoever would come. I think at that point we were well and truly past kind of getting bums on seats, and the number of children that were there, boys and girls, and that was just fantastic to see. And I kind of wonder now, obviously, I know that the Lionesses have got at that elite end of the game again, the World Cup qualifiers and so on, but you do wonder now between friendlies and whatnot whether they will start to circulate around the grounds again, in a similar fashion obviously as the Euros tournament forced them to, playing at Sheffield United's ground and so on. And again, going back to Tranmere as well, they were one of the few clubs who kind of said, yeah, we will host the games, because I know that there were a lot of, again, in inverted commas, your big clubs who said no to it, and that's not going back a long time at all. That's going back sort of 5 or 6 years ago, and they just were not prepared to host games. So it'll be really interesting to see whether there's a change in that perspective now, obviously looking at the success and so on and so forth of the side. I know, Greg, you've had a few difficulties, technical difficulties. Greg hasn't fallen asleep. He has kind of been with us and not with us. If you can give us a nod, Greg, if you're all right to talk. I don't know whether you've got any kind of questions or anything for Bethan. Now, there is a chance that we could duplicate something here, because obviously you've not heard everything that's been going on, but just a chance to hear from you, Greg.
Basically, I just wanted to know about the atmosphere at Wembley, actually, at the weekend. One of my friends, he took his daughter, and he said that they bought the tickets a few months ago not knowing who would be in the final, and I think he said that his ticket was £22, and I can't remember what his daughter's ticket were, but then he said that one of his friends tried to get tickets as soon as they found out that England were in the final, and they were £140, obviously before that. Was there anything that particularly stood out about the atmosphere at the weekend? Was there anything that was it tense? Was it excited? Was there all type of emotions, which I'm assuming there would be in any final anyway?
Yeah, so I mean, being there I was always expecting it to be a good day out. But yeah, obviously with England being in the final, it was huge. For me personally, I bought my ticket over a year ago. As I said before, that I was going to that final whoever was playing, because I'm there to support women's football as a whole. But yeah, the atmosphere and the diversity of the crowd was incredible. People of all different ages, people of all different backgrounds, and just to kind of see the uproar and the interest in the game. They weren't just there because it was a day out. They were there because they wanted to watch the game, and they wanted, England to do well, and they were there as supporters, which has lacked over not recent years, but previous years. So yeah, and it does it compares massively to where we've been, and that journey that we've been on in terms of building the female game over recent years. And it's just amazing to be able to celebrate that, and also for those women that went out and performed as well under that pressure that they're not used to. They're not used to playing in front of 87,000 fans, and to be able to go and do that on the day, absolute credit to them. And they're paving the way now for so many young girls to go and achieve. And that's the main thing for me that comes out of it.
I can watch all type of football. I watch under 21s. I could watch anybody really, but like my girlfriend doesn't really watch any football, but she was really invested in it when she was sat watching with me. It's like they're all very likeable players. When you see them interviewed before the game and after the game, you can sort of associate with them all a little bit. And everybody at my office especially, we're all saying, "Oh, she's from my town. She's one of my uncles knows her, such a body." And you've got like a bit more of a connection sometimes. I know Kira Walsh is from Rochdale, and everybody like Twitter just blew up on the Rochdale front of she's from Rochdale, and everyone were like rooting for her and things like that. But you felt like more of a connection a little bit, and I don't know how, but it just seemed organic in some respects because of the sort of she's from my hometown. Somebody's uncle knows this such a body in the team, or the physio, or something like that. But it was really good to just be rooting for them, and then it was just such a organic thing, really. They are superstars now, obviously, but when you look at it from a different perspective, it was mind blowing. It was just so you rooted for them even more in some respects. I'm not too sure if Dec and Jimmy are still on this feed because mine's froze now.
Yeah, it's still here, Greg. I think. Yeah, no, what you were saying there is really interesting as well. That's kind of hit home a little bit for me there. That we, obviously, the three of us, I know, Jimmy, you're an Everton supporter as well. But I think one thing that makes supporting a lower league club very, very special is that kind of rapport that you have with the players and with the club and that kind of relationship. And I think what you're kind of alluding to there is that although all of the members of the England women's team have now, they've put the name up there forever as kind of sporting greats, and rightly so, but that squad had something that was kind of relatable for every single person. Now, whether it's that kind of very clever kind of drip feeding things on social media and so on, so that they're constantly in people's kind of eye line in a fun and approachable manner, whether it's that's kind of subconsciously got people really interested, whether it is just, as you were saying, when the players being interviewed and so on, that they are so grounded. And although obviously they are being paid a wage, and quite possibly quite a healthy wage, it's not at that kind of greedy level that the men's game has now got to. And I think because of that, the female players are being seen, rightly so, as superstars, but it's not at a level whereby they're untouchable. And I think that's kind of brought everybody around them as well. I've seen a number of interviews on things like This Morning and so on, and the interviews are kind of a lot more relaxed. I just can't see if the men were successful in the World Cup later on this year, if they went and won the World Cup, you're not going to get Harry Kane sat on the couch of This Morning talking about, that they went home and the whole of the estate were out celebrating and there was fireworks and stuff. It's that kind of very fine line, isn't it, between being relatable and approachable and then that kind of professional side. And hand on heart, I feel that the Lionesses squad has that in abundance, that they are that kind of middle of the road, kind of approachable, but also very much kind of an inspiration for the nation as well. I don't know whether anyone's got anything that they want to kind of add on to that before we start to try and wrap up.
A team I want to give a shout out to at the Euros, actually, in Northern Ireland. It shouldn't be forgotten that they were largely part-time footballers, and they qualified for the first ever European Championships. There were players there coming over from the Northern Irish League that, they weren't professional, of course, and they were making their own way over there, taking time off their own work to go and play in Southampton. And yeah, okay, I know England beat them 5-0, but to be part-time amateur players and to go up against professionals at any level is always a massive thing. And I loved watching the Northern Irish fans in Southampton, the admiration they had for the Green and White Army, how much it meant to those girls to be representing their country at a major international stage when I think, they must have played in front of probably less than 100 people, and some of them in the club side. And it brings me on to Bethan. I hate to say it at the moment, but Wales not yet qualified for Euros. Obviously with you, I'm not rubbing it in, I swear, but more that with you being involved with the pathway, do you see that coming in the future for Welsh women's football and major tournaments on the horizon?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're striving towards that at the moment. So we're just over halfway through our campaign for the World Cup qualifiers. And there is a very good chance, that we could qualify for the World Cup. We've, focused very heavily on our domestic game as well, and our domestic leagues, in looking at making them more professional than they were before. They're not professional at the current time, but trying to, strive towards that. So yeah, we've got a couple more games left of the World Cup qualifiers. We're on track. We're hopeful. So we've got a game against Slovenia on Tuesday the 6th of September. And today we've just released that we have surpassed our record attendance, which was 5,000 and something, I believe. I can't remember the exact figure. And we've got 5 weeks to go still to sell tickets. And that's a credit to the work that's going on, across all four corners of the UK, and the way in which female football's going. So yes, fingers crossed we will qualify. If it's not this time, over the next couple of years, that is, the aim of the FAW to ensure that our females are provided with the right infrastructure, the right structures to be able to go out and flourish and qualify for a major tournament.
Obviously, the recipe that the England side have used and that kind of everything that's gone on in the background, as well as obviously the players, that's something that obviously the rest of the home nations, I'm sure, will be looking to kind of replicate, and there's no reason why they can't. The talent pool is very, very similar. I'm assuming, obviously, infrastructure-wise and kind of facility-wise will be very similar as well. So there's no reason why we can't have a really exciting few years of the kind of women's game coming through now within the home nation. So that's really, really good to hear. Obviously, that the Welsh FA have got such high kind of aspirations, and rightly so, for the women's game across the border.
No, definitely. I was going to just really sort of go on that point that we are quite unique in the UK, that we do have four nations in the Republic, really, that all kind of feed into each other in terms of with funding and with everything else. And I think it's like we see with the men's game. You've got England playing Wales in the men's World Cup, and the big story that is there, it's huge. It'd be great for the women to be able to do that as well. And I think looking at what the FAW do, I'm always noticing all over social media the amount of coaches the FAW are bringing through in the women's game now. There's coaches coming from over the border in England to do coaching training up in the north or down in Cardiff. And I think they're doing such a great job of developing a pathway for everybody in the country, which I think is wonderful. And yeah, fingers crossed for Wales that they get through to the World Cup as well. Fantastic.
Well, I think from there, Jimmy, we'll probably, if it's okay with everybody, start to try and wrap up. I'd obviously like to extend a huge thanks to Bethan for coming on this evening, and also to obviously Tranmere as a club and Tranmere ladies for allowing Bethan to come on and kind of talk quite openly and quite freely, obviously, about your own experiences, Bethan, but also the infrastructure and the current kind of plan there that Tranmere have for the ladies' game, which I'm confident, as we've said, will kind of go from strength to strength. Before we do go, I have got up on my phone the Tranmere women's fixtures. The opening four fixtures of the season have been announced. So the season starts on the 21st of this month. You are playing AFC Darwin away. Then you are home to Mossley Hill on the 24th, away to West Didsbury on the 31st, and then away to Crewe. Now, Bethan, just before we kind of let you go, where do the Tranmere women's team play? I know you said earlier on that obviously it's free entry, and it would be great to get the numbers kind of through the turnstiles there. But if you could just give a little bit of an info chat there in terms of where we can come and watch.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of our home games are played at Ellesmere Port Sports Village. So just at the sports centre there are the pitches at the back. So yeah, it's free to anybody to just turn up and watch. Most home game fixtures kick off at 2 o'clock. But obviously, unless noted otherwise, yeah, it's 2 o'clock kick off on a Sunday. All games are played on a Sunday. Home games are at Ellesmere Port Sports
Excellent.
Village.
So hopefully we can get... I know obviously this episode is going to be put out by Tranmere Women's as well on Twitter, but obviously as well from our own listeners as well. If we can try and get a few more people turning up to watch that, then that will be fantastic. So the Tranmere Rovers Women and Girls Twitter account is at TRFC Women. Obviously, you'll be able to see on our own social medias as well, Bethan's Twitter handle as well. So we'll put all of that kind of information as well at the top of the episode when we share that as well. And hopefully we can get a few more people along to support the women's team. I'd just like again to say a huge thank you. Greg's got his hand up, so I'll pass over to Greg in a second. But a huge thank you from me.
Question.
Oh, go on, Greg.
Did you say Darwin?
Yeah, AFC Darwin.
Yes, I live in Darwin. Yeah, so
no excuse.
I'm feeling like we all need a bit of a podcast day out to the Darwin Tranmere match now.
Me and Shell will go.
In Darwin? What date's that?
You put me on the spot now. Give me a second. The date is the 21st.
No pressure, Dave.
There you go, 21st to 2 o'clock kickoff. And I did probably read that wrong because I've zoomed in on a very grainy screenshot. So
that's fine.
Yeah, but definitely the 21st.
I live in Darwin. I'm going to go to that. Yeah.
We'll see you there.
Fantastic. Away day.
So yeah, a huge thank you again to Bethan for obviously giving up her time. We'll be following your progress obviously and the rest of the team's progress really closely throughout the season, and it, potentially to midpoint or towards the end of the season that we could have you back on. And again, just start to talk a little bit about the kind of, hopefully, the changes that we've seen within the girls and within the women's game. So yeah, a huge thank you. Hopefully you all enjoy listening. We've not sent anyone to sleep. And as we said before, we are here to listen, we're here to learn. And that's exactly what everybody should now be doing. We should be welcoming this with open arms. And yeah, I'll leave it there. Anyone else want to put something else in before we finish?
No. Bethan, thank you so much. It's been really insightful. We appreciate how busy you are with your various roles and things that you do, and obviously with your career and that. If you ever want to come back on, you are always more than welcome. It has been brilliant listening to you. Honestly, it's been quite a privilege to have a footballer on that's got such knowledge on the inside of the game. So huge for us really here at the podcast. So all I can say is thank you so much for taking time, because I appreciate you've just come off a work call. So you could have easily just had a cup of tea and gone to bed, but you've actually sat down and had a chat with us, so that's really, really appreciated.
Thank you very much. It's been really insightful. I've missed a bit of a chunk of it just because my internet's absolutely terrible. But yes, it's been absolutely brilliant.
No, yeah, I just want to say, yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for the invite. And yeah, anything we can do, in terms of supporting conversations, we're always here to help. So no, thank you again. And yeah, look forward to maybe catching up in a few months.
See you at Darwin.
Sports Social Podcast Network.